Hey everyone, welcome to the SC community. I have some special guests here today and they're going to introduce themselves, but I'm going to introduce Eternum Analytics from Tucson, Arizona. Go ahead and introduce yourself, guys. Welcome.
So I'm David Scott, Dr. David Scott, the technical director of Eternum Analytics and co-founder. We've been around since 2021 working on this project. Just recently opened about 15 days ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My name's Sam, like you said, co-founder. I'm a quality manager at Eternum Analytics.
And engineering. He's our engineering director. We do a lot of automation and engineering to make sure we can troubleshoot as fast as possible.
Awesome. So I met David at our every third Thursday Smart Cannabis Network night here in Tucson. And it was just really a breath of fresh air. He walked in. We have a mutual friend who asked him to come. And it was really exciting because most of the people who join our network nights are business owners and they have brands. So it's important when you have brands, you got to have the right people to test your products. So this is going to be a special segment. But David, Sam, can you share a little bit about the establishment in the cannabis industry that you guys have built together? Tell us a little bit backstory. I know you had told me it's been a couple of years before you actually are getting ready for your grand opening. Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So we were both at U of A. I got my bachelor's at U of A in biochemistry and molecular biology. I started grad school at U of A as well. I then left for some family troubles and some other issues or whatever. Started working. I just got a job and started kind of focusing on my own stuff. Throughout some of those jobs, I ended up at the Green Halo, actually, one of the dispensaries here in town. A good friend, Josh Carlson, actually got me that job. And I became the general manager there and was working during SB 1494 implementation when testing started for dispensaries and cultivations. So I got to see the chaos when it started. At the time, I think there was 3 laboratories. Josh Carlson knew I was a science guy and smart, and he came back and was like, "Man, these opportunities here for testing labs right now. I mean, tests are expensive. They're mandated. They're not going anywhere. Like, you should think about trying to figure out how maybe we should go into business and open one." And so kind of convinced me to go back to school and get my PhD because technical director needs at least many years in cannabis testing or a PhD entry level to be a technical director. And we needed a technical director to be able to open the laboratory.
Right.
So I went to U of A, got my PhD, and then I've worked with Dr. Mike Hanna, our CEO, for 10 years now through the University of Arizona. So then when I got my PhD, we got Sam here involved too. He was at U of A with us at the Center of Innovation for Brain Sciences, CIBS, this department we worked in. And seemed right at the time. We thought cannabis testing needed academics. Now that we are academics coming into the industry, we realize there's a lot of other things it needs rather than academics. It's not really about how much academic experience you have here with industry testing. There's a lot more involved in cannabis testing than just the methods. So
Definitely.
We've learned a lot throughout this course. But yeah, so we started this February 21, I think is when Eternum Analytics LLC was formed. Our last license just got granted August 29th or something like that, like
My
2 months ago or whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
So it took us about 2 years for us, and really it's because we had 2-3 people the whole time. We've done something really almost, I don't want to say impossible here, but we're self-funded. Dr. Mike Hanna is our sole investor so far, and internally us two have pretty much built this entire business from scratch.
It's amazing.
We're from academia, so we did not understand the accreditation required for industry labs, how to build a lab, how to get AZDHS licensing, the inventory, the security, cannabis testing license. Like it was learning as we went and plugging in as we could, and we made it. And now we're fully licensed. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background, how you came into this.
So yeah, like you said, I was working at CIBS. I got my undergrad degree, bachelor's of chemistry. But while getting my formal education at U of A, I worked in automation engineering for the last 10 years. And coming in as a user with David, and we kind of saw that there was a niche for when he brings up what we've built, sometimes quite literally the amount of things I've physically built and put into optimizing something that we need dealt with. And
we're quick problem solvers. His engineering skills in 3D printing and machine working, I mean, every time we run into a problem within a couple of days, he usually has some type of prototype figured out for us to start moving forward. Him and his dad have done great work for a lot of people in Tucson, actually.
So tell us a little bit, let's talk about licensing. I know you guys started in 21, and then now on my birthday, you guys got accepted and you're ready to go. We're going to have a grand opening here on November 19th.
November 19th. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the licensing process. Like, what did it really take to have a licensed cannabis lab?
Sure. So the first step is called ISO accreditation, International Standard of Operations. So ours specifically is the 17025 version, which is for testing and calibration laboratories. So those are international accreditations that any lab that wants basic revenue, not even cannabis, all laboratories pretty much get some type of ISO accreditation. In order to do so, you have to have quality management systems in place, your data management, your controls, your calibration frequencies, your training personnel records, environmental records, facility designs, all kinds of things in order to prove that you can consistently run the same methods over time. Ironically, you do a lot of method validation through that. And of course, we're trying to validate methods for cannabis, but without the cannabis license, you can't use cannabis. So we use parsley and hemp, which is actually hard to find true hemp to keep legal in the laboratory when you're buying from the CBD stores and stuff. But we worked through it and then finally got ISO accredited so that you can apply to AZDHS for your first cannabis license, which is just the inventory and security side. We got approved quickly for that. And then, of course, now we're allowed cannabis and had to revalidate all of our methods for true matrices that we're trying to make sure work. So then we had cannabis flower from dispensaries and stuff and started reworking our methods. Pretty much revalidated all of them fully so that then we can apply for the cannabis testing license. And that's what we just went through.
Awesome.
So we approved all of our services besides pesticides and mycotoxins. We still contract that out right now. But we're hoping to expand that very quickly and get that as full panel, all internal as soon as possible.
Awesome. So how do you guys ensure compliance with state and federal regulations?
So 2 ways. One, we are always in direct communication with regulators here with AZDHS. Mary Cornell, sorry, she just got married and changed her last name and I forgot what it was. So sorry about that, Mary. Most of the AZDHS people, we're not afraid to ask their questions. They're nice. They're actually, they talk to you. I mean, it's really a lack of communication I think people make fear out of because they've been very direct and nice with us.
Same with me.
Yeah. So we've liked them. So we like direct communication with them. And if we have questions, they've been very thorough. And then other than that, we also use AZ Care Check, which a lot of people aren't aware of. But using that, all AZDHS audits are publicly available, dispensaries and testing labs alike. So using that, we can actually gather information on AZDHS's audits of customers and or other laboratories. Using that information always keeps us ahead on all the rules that AZDHS is enforcing across laboratories. So we can make sure our processes are always optimized to whatever they've been auditing for. So we've been pretty good on our audits so far. And we just only had 2 now, but I'm excited for next year. I think we'll be fine. Yeah,
they're up there. You can see them too.
Yeah, our audit is publicly available.
Would recommend looking.
Dispensaries that you buy your products for, you can see how compliant they've been over time. All of their audits in the last 5-10 years are all there. So awesome. I think it's a great public resource that people are not really available or know of.
What would you say from the range of services that you guys provide, for the cannabis industry? What does that look like? If I'm a licensee holder, I have brands, what would you offer to the license holders?
Sure. So most of the compliance testing are called full panel tests, which include your cannabinoids. Of course, we have a 11 cannabinoid profile. Only the big 4 are made for compliance, your DA, D9, CBDA, and CBD. Mm-hmm. But most labs offer at least 11. Some go higher as 21, but they're rare cannabinoids. Yeah. There's many more than 21 cannabinoids.
Yeah.
Right? There's large panels. I'm sure down the line, especially by the time we're federal testing and stuff, the panels will be 25, 26 and stuff like that. So that's compliant for your cannabinoid levels. And then we do microbials. So the E. coli testing, all matrices have to be tested for E. coli. And of course, specific action limits. So like flour and oils are allowed to have like 100 CFUs versus edibles, or since you're ingesting them, need much lower E. coli count. So it's a different rule. And then aspergillus and salmonella testing as well. We do PCR for that, but we don't really need to go into the technical details of the testing. And then, so that's all the microbials. Everything gets tested for microbials. You always have to at least test for E. coli and salmonella. The aspergillus testing is for inhalables only.
Okay.
And that's why the additional requirement for mycotoxin testing is there, because mycotoxins are from aspergillus. So all things always get tested for mycotoxins. That's a toxic byproduct of aspergillus, why we test for aspergillus in the first place. And then the last few are heavy metals, which is something else that we originally tried testing for in our lab, but the instrument for that is actually very hard to house in small laboratories and stuff. And we had some very weird technical difficulties trying to keep that in our laboratory. When we're working on expansion, when we have more space, we're going to add those in soon. And then the last ones are your pesticides, which everyone has to test for. Our panel in Arizona is only 57 pesticides now, I believe. They dropped their herbicides and growth regulators here now, weirdly. Yeah, like I said earlier, that's actually the only service internally we don't provide. We contract that one still out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And the alternative ones too, we have terpene profiles. We offer those. It's one of our niche that our customers so far that we've had really love us for our terpene profiles. We do gender testing for plants, especially people grown from seed. People grown from clones don't generally need that. And then we have plant viral detections as well. So we do HLBD testing, powdery mildew, certain type of crops for cultivators so they can monitor the plant health.
Awesome. Let's talk about quality assurance. How do you maintain accuracy and the reliability in the testing procedures? And like, I know you said you had some, instances where things didn't really go the way, maybe because you weren't equipped for it, but like, what do you go through that process and how do you fix that?
I would say there's two roles to quality assurance, I guess, really. So the first is through our validation processes, is ensuring that we have like robust methods that are repeatable, reproducible, accurate, precise over time, different days of time, different batches, different matrices, right? There's a lot of upfront costs for laboratories before we even open that we put a lot of time and energy and resources into making sure that they will be good for everything over time, right? Exactly. We can't keep up with 20 samples a day over and over and over. That's hard to do on specific methods. And along with those methods, after you've developed and made sure they work, we run controls with every single batch that has to go through. So legally, labs aren't allowed to run more than 20 samples at a time in a batch.
Okay.
So we can stack batches, but all controls have to be stacked within 20 of the samples at all times. And we do like laboratory control samples. So we have our own internal matrices that then we spike with cannabinoids or terpenes or solvents, whatever we're testing your samples for. And we carry those samples through with the unknown samples that your cultivators are submitting to us. And those are control knowns that have to pass our criteria before we'll pass or fail your samples in the first place. That allows us to have data qualifiers so that when, I don't want to say customers blame the lab, so when things can go wrong in labs, right, contamination can occur or solvents get into samples when they shouldn't have and stuff. So those controls allow us to know when it came from the laboratory or when it likely is true in your sample. And we always do our due diligence with root cause analysis, even when people do get flags, to make sure it was nothing that could have happened on our end as best as possible. And customers seem to like that transparency a lot. Like we've done our due diligence to make sure that even before they fail, just like when we see, solvents coming up from extraction labs from tools they're using and stuff like that, like we let them know hopefully at least long before they start getting to thresholds where you're not safe to be using those tools in making products. Because of course, right, there's action limits, right? So like there's a certain amount of concentration of like an alcohol, like butane hash oil, right? There's 5,000 ppm is the threshold for safety. So if we test samples that are 1,000 ppm, that passes. There can be butane in your salt or your wax when you smoke it, whatever.
Right.
But letting the customers know that before that becomes a problem and they fail their products helps them make sure that they don't fail in the first place, and over time can start fixing their products and be cleaner.
So if that were to happen to me, being the licensing holder and having this brand come out, I bring my product to you guys to get tested and it doesn't meet the requirements, like what does that process look like?
Yeah, nobody wants to fail. Okay, so it depends on the failure, right? So there's two, chemical or micro, right? Microbial failures or chemical failures. Microbial failures, other than Aspergillus, I believe, Salmonella and E. coli, you can do remediation techniques to your product, right? So most of those would be like your baked goods. So you can rebake your batch or reformulate it and try again with the same source material and stuff. And then as long as you can sterilize your product so that it will pass, you get a retest. I believe you only get 2 retests though on the E. coli and microbial. Aspergillus is not a retest. If you fail in the laboratories, so if you fail for Aspergillus in a laboratory, we're not even allowed to rerun that internally. So like, right, you give us enough sample, we're allowed to retest if you request and stuff, but except for Aspergillus. If you fail for Aspergillus and all of our quality controls that I just talked about carry through and worked, we're not even allowed to get like second guess that result, and we have to fail you. So that one's always hard to explain to customers.
Yeah.
So micro's finicky.
Have you ever had a situation when that happened?
So far we've only been open for 2 weeks. We don't have a lot of customers. We haven't ran into a lot of issues with failures yet. So I'm good. But I know I'm getting ready for those type of conversations because they're the hard ones to have with customers that have production batches ready to sell, and now we have to fail them, and they're upset. A lot of labs have consulting services too that they're working with to help you have remediation processes and help you figure out where the source contamination maybe came from and mitigate the problem from sources so you don't have future failures.
I was going to say not necessarily remediation, but necessarily preventing it before
it happens. Yeah. And I think that's so important. I know, Juan, he talks a lot with cultivators, and, one of the cultivators brought to his attention that they couldn't make it because they had to save their crops. They were getting ready for harvest, and a little bug that was unknown from what they're used to, and we're not sure what it was yet, but yeah, I mean, this could literally waste their entire product, and what are they going to do? So it's just like, having that conversation, had, like you said, not remediation, but something that can prevent it from actually happening. I think the fact that you guys have that transparency with your clients and can really help the industry kind of like, this is what you should be aware of. That's what I like, going to someone who doesn't just do the job, but can be kind of active with you and give you, those things that you need to be aware of, the know-how, so you don't have those problems in the future. I think that's really great that you guys offer that. I know you talked about third-party testing and the accreditation programs, and I know that these programs can enhance your credibility. What are some of those programs that you guys use to make your laboratory just even more,
So
5-star?
But all laboratories have to do, actually, and hopefully they're actually passing them. But they are called proficiency testing. So,
Okay.
like the ISO accreditations I've been talking about, we're 17025. There's other accreditations that are called 17034, or 43. I always forget these numbers, but they're the PT providers. So they're accredited institutions that make blind tests, send them to laboratories everywhere, and they're interlaboratory comparisons, right? So
Okay.
we all have. It's kind of the issue and federal will help this, but without standardized methods, all of us can have very vastly different results across the same samples because we're all doing our own methods that are internally validated. Because since cannabis is legal, there's no standardized federal method that all states should be using, and
Right.
not even in singles. I think California was the first state now this year. The first one, they mandated a single type of potency method that all labs have to do.
Oh,
So
wow.
now all labs are doing the same exact potency method, which I find good and bad. The standardization is good, right? So that it's for lab shopping. I haven't gone over potency yet for the failures or whatever with that, but
Okay.
lab shopping is very common. Cultivators or dispensaries will submit, one sample to several laboratories. Whoever gives them the best potency result is now who's going to get their business and give them
Interesting.
more and more product, which is really frustrating for both ends because they're shopping for the wrong reason. It's because the consumers now are so stuck on high potency that they have to have high D9 scores in order to get patients and customers alike to buy their product. So now
Right.
they're forcing their genotypes and their product to just hopefully be high shoppers for D9 only instead of broad spectrum products that are much healthier for medicine
Yeah.
or anything else, or terpene profiles or flavonoids or anything else that's actually medicinal besides the least medicinal aspect is D9 THC.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's direct this towards the consumers out here. I know a lot of people, for some, this is still kind of a new thing when it comes to cannabis education here in Arizona. So for the consumers, like, what do you suggest to them that they should be looking for when they're going to a dispensary to go shopping? And you say they're looking for that potency, that, percentage. What should they really be looking for to get a quality product rather than just off the percentage?
Well, first, safety, right? I mean, making sure it is safe.
Yeah.
Which, if it's sold in the stores, it should be safe. So making sure your product does have COAs that all dispensaries should be readily available to give to you in the first place. Anyone buying products right now in dispensaries, there are QR codes on your products that can scan from your phone, and they should be able to open the COAs, their certificates of analysis for the product you're buying. So as soon as you open that, your phone right there will say safe, 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 and show you microbial pass, metals pass, pesticides pass. It'll tell you the product that you had is okay to
Safe.
use.
Right.
And then so after the safety, sure, you're trying to shop for the correct product that you want to use, especially once you become new users. It's harder because you're not really knowing what you're searching for yet. So as long as you know, if you can document what you're using, then at least you can find trends over time and learn what is good for you. Maybe CBGA is really helpful for your headaches or something,
Right.
but you can't shop for CBGA yet. So you need to look at COAs and know what's in the product. Until people start only labeling D9, no one knows what else is in there in the first place.
Right.
And really, if you every time you love the smell, that's the terpene profile. Those are also in the COAs. So when you smell your weed and you like the smell, you can read the COAs that product has and see why it's
Identify.
alpha pinene or beta caryophyllene, all kinds of weird linalool, eucalyptol, whatever you're smelling is why you like it. And there's a reason why you like it. You likely
Your
need those type of
receptors.
yes, it's a
Yeah.
good response. That's the
It's
medicinal
like taste
response.
buds, right?
Exactly. That's why you crave it and like it again. That's what made it healthy for you. And that's why certain strains, if it stinks and you're like, oh, I don't like that one, likely you don't want it. It has certain
Your
terpene
body's
profiles.
going to reject it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, I know everybody on the street, like me personally, I take tinctures and edibles every once in a while, or some, infused drinks. But when it comes to flower, I hear everybody out there say, man, this is the best hit and shit, like, I got the best hit and shit. And it's just like, okay, well, what makes it the best hit and shit? Like, let's really identify what, I laugh at Juan because when he smells weed, he'll be like, man, they're hitting some good shit. I'm like, how do you even know it's really
You
good
can tell by
shit? You
smell.
know what I
You
mean?
can tell.
So
We know as soon as
see,
it comes
you're
in the
teaching
lab if it's
me.
good or not.
See, now I don't have to make fun of him because
No,
I
that's
would just
true.
always think for someone who really doesn't know, you know,
It
who's
smells like
not a
skunk.
smoker. Yeah. Like my mother, she buys cannabis for my sister and ships it to her, and because they can't get it where she's at. And she's like, how do you tell somebody who doesn't smoke know that they're getting a good product, you know? Like, so for new users, like you said, so that's a good thing. So it's like your taste buds, you got to trust, you know, what your body is
Your
reacting to, your
instincts,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and start slow and small dose, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everything, just like edibles too, though. I mean, you don't want to start popping. Yeah, I mean, when my grandma started, my family started. My family's been using for a long time, but my grandma's finally all into it and stuff. So she starts with like Star, and I told her like rip a leg off and start there. I mean, that already works for her. 2.5 mgs a night right now is working for her, and
Good.
the lower the threshold, the longer it's going to work for you. Anyways, you're going to build a tolerance. Everyone
True.
does, right? You're going to need more and more. Try to take tea breaks because it'll work better the next time. Then, but I know some people can't, right? Especially depending on why you're using. And so but starting off the flower, that's why like having a COA would be so helpful, because other than strain name and who produced it, which strain name can differ by grower right now, and they could be technically the same strain or not and have the same name. It's very confusing. But COA is true based off profile. That brought that profile of that strain, regardless of whoever grew it. When that lab tested it, it had these terpenes, it has these cannabinoids, and it felt good to you. That's your broad spectrum medicine right there that you're looking for.
Right.
So when you shop again, what would be nice is if you could look at COAs before you buy the product, so you could shop for what you're looking for. But because they don't market everything as in COAs and just what's D9, you can't shop for what you're looking for in the first place. I mean,
What are some questions they should probably ask the bud tenders, you know, if they're a first time person going into a dispensary?
I'd love to say you could ask for the COA, but that seems to be a lot harder than it really should be for people to do. Truthfully, yeah, for every new incoming user, there's going to be something different for them specifically, and it's going to be hard to necessarily find that. Truthfully, starting with low dose and starting slow is probably your best bet with anything, and documenting, keeping track of what you
Yeah.
were taking, strain profile.
No, that's
everything.
so true. I've asked this question to a few others, and you're the first person to say start documenting what you take.
Mhm.
Because, like, if you really don't know where it's coming from or you don't have access to the COAs, like, you're going to kind of have to like experiment, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you'll have to know. So, yeah, definitely. I like that answer a lot.
what is nice about the medical side, though, you can request your purchase history through dispensaries from any dispensary, right?
Okay.
So then, like, if you are curious at the end of the year and want to, I mean, you weren't documenting, now today you want to start remembering what you bought, you can ask a dispensary and they'll print out your history from AZDHS of everything you bought from every dispensary in Arizona. So you can start seeing your strains or whatever you purchased.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk about the industry challenges here in Tucson, Arizona. I know Phoenix and Arizona can be day and night.
Yeah.
I know you have a variety of products to test, but let's talk about the challenges just having a cannabis laboratory in general.
Yeah. Well, entry barrier is rough. It's the, I mean, we're finally at this open, so we're seeing it right now, but it's really this long, expensive, drawn out process to be able to just open, which is for due cost, but it's very expensive to get in, and you have to have a bunch of instrumentation and a bunch of skilled personnel, a very expensive facility design, which cultivators actually have that too. So it's a different, the build design.
It's a cannabis industry.
Yeah,
in
cannabis
general,
problem.
but-
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
not the lab problem. All right, the entry barriers, and it's getting more, especially actually Arizona, the way it's kind of monopolized, it's getting more and more expensive to get in.
So would you say it's like more of a pay to play thing here, or it's kind of like on your side, it's more balanced out because like you said, you have to have those educational, experimental hours and all these accreditations that you have to have before coming in,
I'd
just to
say,
even be, like you said, the technician and
yeah, but both sides. So that's kind of the ethical dilemma that's going on in the testing right now. There are
Okay.
pay to pass labs, right?
oh,
They're getting shut down. AZDHS is doing a much better job keeping up at this point.
Good.
But for a while, it was very frustrating to have that unfair competition that can drop prices, not test, and say you're safe regardless of what your product ever had in the first place. A lot of them are gone. So I'm very happy for that. And that's what we meant. Staying transparent and ethical with our decisions will keep us around long term because
100%.
we're transparent with what you have and we test for reals.
What's done in the dark comes to light,
Yes,
right?
eventually.
Yeah.
Always does. And so, I mean, but the industry challenge is keeping, surviving during those eras and trying to explain to customers who now, even though those labs are gone, they set a precedent where I want 2-day turnover at $200 and I'm hoping everything passes every single time. They've never tested with other labs who have been ethical and have to test it, and you have to do 3-day turnover.
They're used to one thing, so they expect it to be this way. You know, coming back home, I really noticed those things. You know, being in Illinois, they have a great program. Toy Hutchison and Governor Pritzker have done a really good job at, you know, even making way for social equity, but even on the testing side, right? Like it's still such a huge, you know, gray area. And we got to hear Kathleen May talk a little bit about testing laboratories and stuff. But one of the things is that it's pretty black and white to how testing is supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And those policies are out there. So it's kind of interesting to see the lack of knowledge that people really have when it comes to state compliance, even though Phoenix and Tucson are still day and night, but compliance and the law is the law, right?
Yeah.
So like for someone who's on the ethical side and doing good business and doing everything on the up and up, you know, it might be hard for that transition, but I think this is why, you know, we need to educate more. But for the licensee holders and the brand owners, not necessarily the dispensary license holders, but the brand owners, you know, this is something like, what can you tell them? Like, what should they expect the process to look like?
Just like a testing in general, like
like
your first time submitting your
like,
new compliant and want your first test. Okay. Well, actually, I mean, if you want to explain the chain of custody process.
Sure. So, so it's a requirement to have a chain of custody to track the location and inventory of cannabis at all times. And so you'll bring in your inventory. We can make a chain of custody for you and a trip plan because we're supposed to document where you came from, how you were even driving and transporting your cannabis product.
So it's real technical.
Documentate everything.
That's the
if you
key.
have cannabis on you, document everything.
Yep.
Wow.
And the requirement, you have to have an external batch ID, and it's a little bit different for like recreational versus medical compliance, right? Especially if you're not, there's different ways to submit to, especially before you're ready to sell. You can submit for like R&D and QA/QC and get some of your answers done before you submit for the expensive test, right?
Gotcha.
Like, so you want to know your batch is homogenized well and what potency it's at. Just submit for a QA/QC potency result real quick, $70, get your result, and know that your real batch submission for full compliance will be at a label that you want to present. Right?
Gotcha.
Same as microbial. If you think you might have E. coli or salmonella, you can do single a la carte submissions to make sure that your stuff's kind of ready long before you're starting to submit for the important one that you need before you can sell your goods.
Yeah, we'd actually love to work with people, kitchens, formulators, making during their actual formulation process. If they can submit to us before they start labeling and what they think their potency levels should be in their products, we can confirm that with them kind of before they go. And the amount of times makers get into issues of having to relabel batches of products because the COAs that a lab produces ends up being higher, lower. And then
is this something that's already offered out there, or is this something that you guys have done? Because I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
you can collaborate ahead of time with the brands.
No, it's offered. You can't. So there's a fine line there. You can't submit like compliance twice. Right? So on your batch ID, that's kind of what I mean. You have to do. It has to be under QA/QC, R&D. And you can't say it's for compliance and then use that result on your COA to sell your goods. And
Gotcha.
stuff. We market them for informational use only on stuff. You are not allowed to sell your goods with that type of COA.
No, while you're building the recipe for your product.
Once you're in production, and that's why these customers need these label claims, right? So your label claim has to be within 20% of the concentration you're saying it is. So if you're saying it's 100 mg brownie, your COA has to say within 80 to 120 mgs of that actual brownie.
Okay.
So when they already made 10,000 labels, they're all ready to go. They wait for a COA, and we now say it's 78 mgs. They're out of compliance then, right? So now they're upset because they want.
Hold on, making all those labels, you guys.
It's a production nightmare. We're not saying that, but what we're hoping to, and that's what we're just opening. So we're hoping to start marketing this. But our niche is kind of edibles. We put an extension of validation for different types of matrices in edibles because they're vast. There's so many, right?
Yeah.
Hard candies, gummies, chocolates, brownies, cakes, caramels, juices. I don't know, but we've done
topicals
now. We just started working on too. Yeah, there's so many, and that's why it's hard to make sure your method is robust to have the same recoveries. Make sure your cannabinoids are there, your pesticides, whatever else you're also testing is all safe there and able to be extracted. So it gets difficult, but you can do so because it's our niche. So we're hoping to help formulators save money because if your laboratories have not fully validated these methods, their recoveries can be low, and you're going to need to put a lot more concentrate into that batter mix to be able to get recoveries into your label claims, right? And so we can dial that in with you before you start making these label claims. You can make sure you save your product so you need the just right amount for your infusion to be 100 mgs. Because right, if the lab recoveries, if I can only test so well and only get 70% out of that brownie, I'm gonna tell you it's 70 mgs. Even if you did hit 100 mgs, the lab can only test it so well.
Right.
So, which is why we've made sure we put so much time into edibles to make sure our recoveries are 99 to 100% and stuff like that. So that now, and that's what we're worried about is if someone's been working with the lab for a while, we're going to test your product and you're going to be at 140 milligrams because you've been over infusing this whole time. And some laboratories maybe didn't have developed methods well enough that, yeah, they give you the label claim so you pass, but you've actually been 30, 40 mgs higher. Now patients are eating things that are actually 150 mgs or 200 or higher. It can happen. And that's a different issue than even just the homogeneity of like a chocolate bar and stuff. But
No, I just like that though, because there's a lot of, brands owners that I know, and, like at the one I just spoke to you guys about earlier, she brought all this labeling and
Yeah.
change of the law, and you guys must, like, how do you guys keep up with the law changing all the time when it comes to the regulations and the efficiency of how your testing is supposed to go? How do you guys adapt so fast?
yeah,
Let's hear the stories, guys.
that's a hard one. So I don't know, sense of urgency. I guess it's knowing that it has to get done. Some rule changes. One we're still working on right now, like microbial changes, where certain techniques will be dropped. They're not going to be AOAC approved or allowed by AZDHS, so laboratories will not be allowed to use them anymore.
Okay.
And so you're gonna and that's a 6-month deadline. So right, they release an update and say, hey, in 6 months you will not be compliant anymore if your laboratory is still using this method.
So that at least they give you a window to
they generally do.
trend
6
over.
months is generally what's weird about those. They give you the 6-month window, but they wait for their year audit to come make sure you did it in the first place. So a little bit of wiggle room on that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Which is whatever. But
We're not complaining.
yeah, we need some wiggle room sometimes. 6 months is fast for some of these rule changes. A recent one, so informational update 9 just came out. Again, if you use AZ Care Check or go to AZDHS, they have a whole portal that shows you all these rule updates. It's not hidden; it's all public information. But informational update 9 just came out that went over homogenization requirements now. Where now when it comes into the laboratory, all kinds of rule changes happen. Like particle sizes now have to be 1/4 inch before we can even start testing. So right,
Okay.
so we say we used to be able to crumble it and it'd be just a couple nug sizes or a little bit particle size smaller. Now they're saying that we have to make sure that it's less than 1/4 inch for all the particles before we can start aliquoting for testing and stuff, which is weird. So then you have which ironically hand grinders work the best anyways for flour and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But like we worked on flash freezing product and blending them and having submersion vessels for like liquid nitrogen, and we went through all kinds of different tools and techniques to make sure homogenization can be compliant and fast and optimized and repeatable and robust and work across all kinds of matrices. And it's frustrating when you put a lot of that work and then sometimes like it was correct, and then all of a sudden 1 month all of a sudden they make a new rule and now we have to retry it all again, revalidate it, and figure it out. Recently before we opened, but heavy metal testing had a big change. They halved the mercury action limit required for edibles from, or actually less than half. I think it went from like 1.2 ppm to like 0.2 ppm, like so a sixth of what the limit used to be. Meaning laboratories now have to revalidate their methods, make sure they could test that low, test the limit of quantification, revalidate all the methods and matrices, and make sure it works for oils and flours and ingestibles. And they had 6 months to do that.
Wow. So with the efficiency of your equipment, like what does that process look like when you have to change to see if you can even test that low?
Oh man, I mean, luckily that's the heavy metals that we're not testing for, and we would contract out, so a different laboratory had to
So
solve that
it's a
problem.
lot easier for you guys.
Yeah, and that's actually
Take the pressure off.
yeah, that's allowed. That's kind of how we got right here is making these tight decisions where we pieced our lab together slowly. So like we started with microbial first. Like we only had PCR and plating, and then eventually got enough money to buy an HPLC for cannabinoids, and then eventually got enough money and had to make a decision: do we want to do pesticides or metals and solvents? And so as we pieced the company together, we had to make decisions, and now we're here, and now we contract out pesticides and mycotoxins.
You guys are Superman.
But that's for now. That's what I meant. That's what we wanted to open. We wanted to get our name known and get out there, get some customers, and build the brand that we can then get the more instruments that we need, more space that we need and stuff. But we have a small lab and we've made it work, but we utilize every square foot possible, and he builds everything that we need. So.
That's amazing. I'm going to ask you guys individually, like what in your vision, right? Separate from David's,
Sure.
what do you define yourself and this company as being unique to the industry than the other testing laboratories?
Sure. Okay. I think there's a certain level of innovation that I kind of bring into almost anything I do. Almost every issue we come into, it's very like, I could 3D print something that'll fix that. Like, let me go draw something up and all. spend the afternoon drawing, and we'll literally just build something by the next day or something.
Amazing.
Yeah, every little issue, then we'll build something, we'll fix something, we'll
And those
adapt
are
something into
scalable. I mean, he's working on larger, long-term automation projects for entire homogenization processes, or getting samples all the way into our GCMS processes and
Wow.
automating microbial processes. Like, we want all of our methods before we have labor up front. Basically, we're going to automate everything.
Yeah, we've started with a small team, and essentially using automation, I should be able to keep us.
Yeah,
Small
definitely.
Yeah.
No, and it's so true. And I asked that, and I'll ask you the same question here in a second. But I think what really, I know our mutual friend brought us together. However, when we look for companies that we want to partner with, or even just suggest to our, partners and affiliates and stuff like that, for myself and for Juan, we built this company, and instead of going out and partying all the time and trying to network and stuff, like we got straight down to the business. Like, building the foundation is super important, because I think for you guys to be still standing in 2030, right?
Yep.
How many laboratories do you suggest are going to still be standing? And when you guys come from such well-rounded backgrounds, and you're able to fix your own problems instead of having to call somebody to come and figure it out, and then you're waiting on their time, I just feel like there's so much value here, and because you guys are building that foundation and going through all the automations now before you guys get everybody in your door, you guys are going to be here long term. And so that's what I take pride on. Like, even for, our business for Smart Cannabis, that's what I'm looking for. I'm a workaholic, and I'm very passionate about why I'm in this space, so like, just hearing your background story and where you guys come from, what your ability is. And you guys are, to me, are true innovators in the cannabis space. And I want to recognize you guys for that. But yeah, what do you think, David? What makes you unique from all these other laboratories?
Yeah, he stole innovation.
Communication, maybe.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Sorry, communication and transparency seem to be the main complaints we keep getting from customers that are switching over to us. And so, not to get away our fucking bread and butter, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, most right now, I know we're small, but all customers have a direct line to me right now, and we talk constantly, and I tell them updates on their samples, what's going on in the lab, when it's gonna be ready. I tell them to pay me, and I'm just kidding. But no, and when there's problems, and like I said, when there are certain things happen in the lab, labs seem to are scared to, I guess, tell customers like, hey, we dropped your sample, we're screwed, we need you to submit another one. Like, yeah, we're sorry, things happen. And they want to know that sooner than later, right? Don't wait 4 days. They've been waiting. They want 3 days to turnover, and you wait even 2 days to tell them that. You just missed half your deadline for sure.
True.
Like, they want to know when it happens. That's why I text them as soon as something happens.
Right away.
Instrument goes down, then that's what I mean. They're not going to run away from you. Like, it's when you do good business like that. Yeah, say we don't have redundancy in instrumentation yet, right? I mean, people are going to hate that I say that. Laboratories have instrument redundancy, right? So that you have multiple of the things, so when they break, samples can keep churning.
Yeah.
That's why I need someone like Sam, because when things break, we don't have redundancy in instrumentation. We have an engineer.
Right. Right.
So we can keep moving, and we always have. And so, but things happen. Things will break, and maybe we can't fix it that quickly. So then they can go to another laboratory, still move forward. I'm not saying stop production, and then they usually come right back once we're back up and running. Anyways, it hasn't happened. I mean, when we were doing R&D with customers last year, stuff, because we were compliant, we were able to do R&D stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, things would happen. They were still they just want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
They have production too, and things go wrong every day. Everyone knows that. So it's more of just being transparent all the time.
I know a lot of people we've talked to, they don't have that transparency. They don't really even have communication. Some of these guys are just communicating through email and having, a administrator call them and let them know, what's going on. Yeah. But most of the time, they're the ones who are having to call in and figure out what's going on. So it's nice that you're accessible. I know once you guys get busy, that might change just a little bit.
To a certain level. I'll have office hours. I'm just kidding. No. I don't know. I'm hoping to always keep that type of customer interface for sure. And really, a lot of it is also bill knowledge. A lot of these customers, they're compliant, they're license holders, but they don't know why they have to submit to us, and like why we need 14 grams of product or 10 grams or what is going on. Their legal rights for retesting. Mm-hmm. Like when we do fail you, you're allowed to say, I want you to send that sample to another laboratory and see if they also get the same result. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't actually trust our results, you have rights for retesting and stuff on that batch ID and stuff like that. And I think because people haven't read the bill, I know it's, and which of course not a lot of people read bills, but
Not a lot of people read anymore.
fair. I guess that's a different issue. But not just me, but we read the bill a lot, and we keep up with it, and we go to the testing council meetings. So MTAC meetings are they're starting in January again. They don't do them October through December. But the medical testing Arizona Council, I believe is what it's called, or whatever. So I'm actually wanting to apply to be on that one day. But right now we at least attend the meetings and see that. That's how we stay up to date with also new rules changes, because they'll go in the vote and we see the votes, and if it passes, they still can't implement them to like October and stuff. So we have a lot of time, and then we can see what's happening long before they just release it in some bill, and we just got
sideswiped. Yeah. I think that seems to be happening. This business is growing, $1 billion industry, and like ever revolving laws, right? And you have to stay current with that. So that's amazing. Let's talk a little bit. Let's hear a story that you guys want to share that's just maybe a funny, great, or a story about resilience that you guys have had to overcome in obstacles.
Oh man, what are we allowed to say? I'll hint at it. So I got my PhD, and then we built this lab, and so it's me and him making sure everything is safe as a laboratory, right? At U of A, we had safety officers running those laboratories. They don't teach you how to build a lab, run instruments, and make sure everything's safe and doesn't blow up in your laboratory.
Oh,
no. Things blow up. Yeah.
We actually, not our fault. We had our microwave digester actually had a pressurized nitric gas explosion in our lab. It was just the two of us there. We're walking up to the computer next to it, and it just blew up off to our side.
Ended up being a faulty manufactured spring.
You guys are still here.
Yeah, no, acid burned a little bit. It's scary. It's very loud, but I thought it was my fault actually at first, because that was the metals testing actually. I told you we dropped or whatever, so we were trying to house this instrument, trying to work on the methodology and stuff like that, and I accidentally overweighed my sample, thinking that I actually doubled the weight, so I thought I overpressurized the system, and that's why it blew up, and I was very scared. But the VP of the company even confirmed to me stuff when they came out. It was a faulty spring that the manufacturer gave us in the pressurized vessels, and so that blew up. So it had nothing to do with what I did. Yeah, I was honest. I told them what happened. I told them what I did. And I was like, I did this, and this. I don't know if I messed it up. Sorry, but it went boom. But everyone was safe. Those things are designed to handle explosions. It does happen in other laboratories. We're not that inexperienced, okay? But it was metal testing to me is very new. He actually has experience in metal testing before. That's also, I'm more of a specialty in chromatography and ICP. What you do for metal testing is very different. So all the once we have a triple quad for like pesticides and mycotoxins, that'll be my specialty, and GCMS and terpenes is my RSA testing is my specialty, HPLC is my specialty. I've been doing that for 12 years.
Lots of specialties very quickly.
That's why I say you guys are innovators in this space, because I know a lot of conventions we've gone to, sat in a few seminars. There's still that gray area, but I just see a lot of people who work for laboratories and are doing what they're told, and they don't really have much room to like explore. And I guess that's the perks of being the owner of it, right?
Yes, I'm about to say
you guys get to be really innovators.
Since we are owners together and the ones running our samples, doing the QA/QC, we have full decision power across all of our processes. But that's why we also make sure we're ethical and talk to each other and enforce each other to make sure we have these borders and boundaries that we have to maintain.
Good.
But yeah, we keep each other in check and keep it running. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I'm glad you guys are still here. I hope no more blowups happen.
No. That was like 2 years ago now. We've learned.
We are ready to open up on November 19th, you guys. Okay.
And actually, all of his prototypes and things he's been building lab, we're doing tours and open house style, so we'll be showing a lot of these things off and stuff. So in regulatory questions, compliance, we're kind of like a Q&A. That's why I'm going to be there, and you can ask me about how to submit samples or what do you anything. That's what we're doing.
We even actually just recently had a new customer. They was their first time ever submitting any compliant sample, and we had to walk them through the entire process, what it meant, why we required the amount of sample we did, and we'd love to do that with everyone.
I'm sure you're doing it right.
Yes, exactly. If that's what it takes to get people knowledgeable and safe, then we'd love to be able to
because it's not like it's really out there like here's the book and this is how you do it,
right? There's no walkthrough for this.
There's not. So it's like
maybe we'll write one day.
I think that's something that we should look forward to doing. You guys would put that out there, because I know this would be really helpful, not just for here in Arizona. I know there's not much a strong presence for micro social equity licenses, but for those that are in other states, there are a lot of micro licenses in social equity, and they don't have a clue where to start. you know? So it's like, what do you look for? Where do you even go and find this information other than going to
Huh.
your regulatory, you
Okay.
know?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
like that process, that's why I think you guys are so unique, because I've talked to quite a few of them. I've been on a panel to see, you know, what that looks like. And even these people, like I said, they're not the owners of the lab. So they're
Mhm.
very limited on what they can learn and know how.
Sure.
And maybe they're not directly dealing with a consumer. So, you know, it's just like there's still that gray area there. So I think that's what makes you guys really unique. But when it comes to like community and collaboration, let's talk about your engagement there. Are you guys currently collaborating with anybody right now for researcher cannabis field?
Kind of in two different ways. Yeah. Um, our microtechnology that we do use for the compliance of Salmonella and Aspergillus, as well as our gender testing and HLPD, all of it, the PCR technology we use currently is PDX. It's actually about 3 buildings that way. They're right next to you guys here. We've partnered with them for like the last 3 years.
Nice.
I love their DNA microarray technology. It's very adaptable. It was originally built during COVID or whatever for the PCR testing that we all have heard of everywhere. And then after COVID, they adapted it to cannabis testing and are nationwide. They're killing it actually in every state besides Arizona. That's why I'm a little hesitant to talk about them. They're having issues here right now, and they're working on getting reaccredited through their AZDA test processes.
Okay.
And I'm hoping they do that in time so we don't have to
Okay.
worry about it. The other collaborations I'm hoping come to fruition long term is, let me double check later if I'm allowed to say all this, but U of A should be opening a cannabis research center here in the next few years.
Awesome.
We for all U of A, we know the director is trying to open that institution, and they need standardized testing for that institution. So I want to be their standardized lab and help them understand what they should be testing, because they will be allowed to have interstate commerce and buy products around the country.
Yeah.
So they'll have everything coming in for the research for Arizona research, and then they need standardized methods to make sure they can test a product before they do the research, so they can correlate to what the product was in the first place. And I'm hoping we get that opportunity to serve that need.
I hope so too. I think that's exciting for us being, you know, responsible vendor providers in the education. We've talked to a lot of their students already. I know you had said did you do the program with them?
No, I'm aware of that program.
Yeah.
That 3 certificate U of A has or whatever. Yeah,
and it's interesting to me because I know here soon, you know, we will be working with them closely to get their students actually a state approved certification.
Oh, cool.
And so, yeah, long term, that's going to be exciting if you guys are going to really do something with their research lab.
Yeah.
And I just think, you know, because we teach to a certain degree about, you know, testing and the importance of it when it comes to the COA and stuff. But I think, you know, as this being your niche, and like you said, you can guide people through it and set it up for all the other organizations. I think you guys long term could be really a platform that goes nationwide to do this.
We're hoping so. That's the big
I see
goal.
it for you guys.
But honestly, no, we say it all the time. Now that we've gone through this and done the ISO accreditation, AZDH's licensing, validation, bought the instruments, built the lab, we're not really intimidated to do it again in another state now.
See?
Arizona's one of the hardest ones anyways. Like,
No, it is.
Yeah. So like if we
It
can do it
is.
here, we can do it anywhere. So I'm ready to copy and paste and
See,
kill it somewhere else.
Yeah, we've already custom designed one lab with no knowledge. The amount of knowledge we have now, if we custom build a second lab, would be
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for the second one.
Oh yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. I know it's going to be good. I know a lot of people are going to be able to have quality testing and have, you know, your hand to guide them through it. And that makes me excited because then I don't get all those phone calls like, who did you send me to?
Yeah, of
No,
course.
send
There
me
you go.
somebody else. No. But how do you guys see yourself engaging, you know, with the local community and, you know, contributing to the public for cannabis?
So we went to Earl Cup, not this past time, but the event before
The
that.
spring one.
And we considered getting a booth there, but we first went and kind of gave it a first experience and looked around and realized that like there weren't any other labs there. There wasn't any information being spread, and we kind of saw it as a good opportunity to come in and do a booth next time and kind of use it as a chance to give talks or give actual information presentation as much as we can for a full day weekend.
Yeah.
And really use that at least to start.
Yeah, I know Mita and Canna Friends, a couple of the other local organizations have started reaching out to that we're thinking of participating in. Of course, you guys are now vendor nights too. We want to come and start trying to give more knowledge and stuff, at least explain to either consumers or your compliant license holders about what testing is and why we're here. But also, I mean, generalized overall to the community. We testing for the people, right? If you have long term like home growers or anyone else that wants to test their product anyways, at least potency or safety. I'm a home grower too, and I've gotten mold on my weed. It's hard to cure it, right? It's hard to grow it. It's hard to make sure it's real. And thank God I have my laboratory to test my own stuff in. But it's good to check sometimes, right? Just to make sure, especially if you are a home grower. It's legal now. You want to learn how to grow, but growing is actually not the hardest part. It's the curing and harvesting that's the hardest part to me. But and really, of course, as a company, we're going to work on. I think we've signed up for like 3% of our gross profits going to like the VA or homeless. We want to find communities and organizations that we can donate to and sponsor. I think that we talked about sponsoring some of the organizations. We do already currently local kickboxing kids club that we sponsor.
Nice.
They put our logos on their shorts and stuff. That's cool. I think we actually just re-signed up with them for another sponsorship
Awesome.
for the next season. But we're trying. We want to get more. I mean, a vast array of different things, either not just cannabis related. But I'm Tucson born and raised, so I like a lot of things around here.
Support local.
Yeah.
Bear down.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
That's awesome. What do you wish more people knew about the role of the laboratories in the cannabis sector, especially in Arizona?
We're here for the consumer. That's what the customers need to understand. Our customers need to understand. That. The cultivators. And manufacturers, everyone. I mean, we're here to make sure that what you do give to the public is safe before you give it to them. That's the main point. It's really not to make sure you have the greatest THC product and the highest potent flower ever made. And that's a cool advertising gig, but at the end of it is to make sure it's safe. And potency is only one of the things that we test for across the entire panel. And other states have much fuller panels that Arizona likely will be adding on to over time. It will get more expensive, more things you have to test for. That's going to come, especially down the line with federal testing. It's even going to get way more crazier when federal testing comes up.
Yeah, definitely.
But right now, it's really just making sure we're here to make sure it's safe. Consumers should know that we are here for you. Like you should, if you have batch IDs on your products, we can help you find COAs. And if you want to verify a product, you can resubmit that product to us after you buy it. That's actually one of the some states have a secret shopper program, right? So they have companies that will go to dispensaries, buy their products, put them back in labs, and see if it matches the COAs that they're selling it under in the first place. I'm not saying everyone should start doing that, but it's a good way to make sure. And I think AZDHS is talking about that process here pretty soon anyways.
We kind of got a little insight about what's going to happen in January. So
there's some changes.
You guys are going to be busy.
Yes.
You guys are going to be very busy.
Good.
Good busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hard to argue with that.
Where do you think, like, so when we do these network nights every third Thursday, excuse me, we want to have some different activations for the consumers. So this is like open to the community. This is not just, people in the industry. Like, what do you think the locals and consumers need? Like, what kind of education and activations could we do with them so that way, they're learning and it's fun and they know that safety is number one. What are some things that we can do to engage in the community?
I know right off that a lot of general consumers don't even know what a COA is.
Yeah.
Let alone how to find it on their product. So really just spreading package information, really the knowledge of how to even find the safety that we're putting into testing for everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Finding the information for sure.
How to find the information.
And then, like you said earlier, how to shop, like what you are shopping for. The only thing you see on the menus are going to be total THC, and there are much better things to be shopping for than just, like you said earlier, if someone smokes and says it's some bomb shit, but if you tell them it's 18%, now they don't think it's bomb shit anymore.
Right.
That's crazy.
It's like
it had nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you didn't, it's crazy. If your menus actually had no THC, you just actually had them back when it was like deli jar days and you got to smell the product before you buy your stuff too. That's kind of what helps because you knew what you wanted to buy. That's a prepackaged kind of makes it hard these days. But the idea, I mean, and
can't
label,
really see it.
You can't smell it, can't touch it. You can't know what you really want, which is, I get in a retail sense, it gets more difficult over time the busier these things get, right? But it did make it much harder for people to know what they want. And now that since the only thing you have is strain and a THC level, that's people are going to use to shop. And that's all the information they have to shop with in the first place. I mean, dispensaries could label more. Like they have the COAs. They know they have them. They could change their menus, but they want the consumer to shop for THC.
Right.
Seems almost like that. I mean, and then because B9 is what everyone's looking for, that's the only thing people associate weed with, right? Is how high can THC get me? And that's not what the medicinal aspect really is for.
Right. I think that's one thing that I'm just, as we do our engagements and we can preach the same message every time, but I feel like we want our community to grow with us as we're growing with the regulations and staying up current. But also it's just like, again, you still have those new consumers or people who are thinking about becoming new consumers. So it's just like what, having certain engagements that we can have them come and maybe do a COA night or something, like bring your favorite COA, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
there you go.
let's do some testing or something like that. Like let's make something fun, activation, so they understand what that is. But yeah, we can talk about that a little bit down the road here. But I want all the innovators in the space to think about the long term. Like if you're going to be here and being an innovator in the space and provide quality service to the consumers, like you said, you're here for the consumers, but you work with cultivators, you work with the manufacturers, you work with the actual dispensaries to make sure they can put the product on this shelf and it's safe, right? But again, there's still that somehow disconnection.
Yeah.
So I know we'll be able to achieve it, but for everyone here in Arizona, COA, certificate of analysis, you can ask for it at your dispensary. If your bud tender does not know what that is, ask for a general manager. They should know what it is. But if they don't, you might find it on the product labeling. You'll have a QR code or, like the list of the ingredients kind of thing. And it'll tell you, what's in there. But look out for the COA, you guys. To get into the end of this, let's talk about 3 years from now. Where do you guys see yourself?
In every state across the country. Just kidding.
Let's do it.
That sounds quick, but that'd be great.
A couple. I mean, we have some whispers in some states already. Texas, Georgia, Connecticut, Florida are things that we have some communication lines with already.
Awesome.
I think I'm allowed to say that we are already in collaboration with Yes Cannabis LLC, who does help with a lot of licensures across the states and stuff. So they're the ones working with us trying to get into Texas and Georgia. We're helping them with their vertical integration for their testing labs.
Perfect.
For their Texas and Georgia.
So this is a great collaboration already.
Yeah, I know they've been really cool. Mike Martinez there, he's been awesome. So we worked with him for 2 years. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say actually too much. So never mind.
Shout out to you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Where do you see you guys in 3 years?
Bigger, ideally a lot more automated,
Fully robotic.
Yeah, fully robotic,
I like
right?
That. I mean, it's happening, right?
Yeah, no.
Maybe we got to get Elon Musk involved.
Yeah, one day he'll call.
Yeah,
he'll call. We're waiting for you, Elon.
Just kidding.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for sharing this expertise and knowledge. I think a lot of people, are just really drowning for information, and you guys are here to give it. So
we're trying, and we're learning with everybody else too. Like I said,
there's really not like a wrong question to ask right now. Like everything's still gray. So it's like we all need to learn that no question is stupid. We're learning together. Don't be afraid to ask, because it probably will save your life or somebody else's life. I think is so important because the plant is healing so many people. It's changing people's lives. Whether you have a medical patient card, I always feel like we're all somehow medicating ourselves and coping with things, right? Yeah. Openly or behind closed doors. But if we have the knowledge, we'll be able to use the products that are out there for us responsibly. And have a great experience and just, see how this changes your life.
Yes.
So thank you guys so much for coming on today. Did you guys want to say anything to our consumers?
If you're interested in license, come to our launch November 19th and come see what testing laboratories look like.
Yeah. Where is this going to be at?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. We're located off Rita and the freeway, UA Tech Parks. So 9052 South Rita Road. Google us. You can find us. We have a website, locations, social medias. You'll be able to find us.
Where's your social media for Instagram?
Instagram is just at Eternum Analytics. Eternum _analytics.
I believe that.
I'll send everything to you guys.
We'll put the information out there for you guys. But yeah, November 19th, we're going to have their grand opening. Come and support them, please. If you know someone who has a brand license holder for a dispensary, make sure that they are there. You don't want to miss this. They'll be doing Q&A, and you guys will get the whole gist of all their services. So thank you guys so much for coming out today. I appreciate you guys.
This was awesome. Thank you.
This is fun.
Thank you.